What's up, everyone? This is Greg with Advantage One Brokers, and this is the ADV1 podcast, the podcast where we bring you topics that are relevant as well as training. And we come to you each and every weekday. Today, we have the honor and pleasure of welcoming Mr. Sam Chand. Do you go by Samuel or Sam?
Sam is fine.
Sam's fine. You're very welcome. Sam, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you, Greg. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's an honor for me as well.
Awesome, man. No, it's my pleasure. Pleasure's all mine. So Sam has, how long have you been with the company, Sam?
I've been with Advantage One Brokers, not necessarily from the exact beginning, but I've been here pretty much like since there was only like 4 or 5 of us. And the interesting story is that I know Chris Curry, but when he contacted me, I didn't even know that it was him that was contacting me when I was talking to him. That's like, I always thought that was pretty funny. I was talking to him the whole time, and I thought it was somebody else.
And so Christopher Curry, you knew Christopher Curry before Advantage One Brokers, and
Yes.
and he brought you in. And so, what do you currently do with Advantage One Brokers? What's your role?
So I run the final expense trading calls. The company has agents that are direct to them, and my job is really to help out as far as final expense agents, help them out in any way. If they contact me, they're not necessarily my agents, but I do whatever I can to help Advantage One Brokers get their final expense agents. I guess their sea legs when they're brand new.
Okay, so you're the specialist when it comes to all things final expense.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. And talk to me about what's your background? How long have you been in the industry? How long have you been in final expense? Been doing that, and we'll kind of go from there.
Well, I actually got licensed in 2009, but for about 2 years, I didn't really do anything with my license. What had happened to me was I was actually in the mortgage industry. I had a mortgage brokerage office for a number of years, and then in 2008, with the financial crash, I lost everything. I didn't know, what to do, and an opportunity came across to me, and it was actually mortgage protection. And I figured, hey, I'm kind of used to doing mortgages, so let me look into this. And I got an interview with a recruiter, and we talked for about half an hour. And I had decided this is for me. I want to get licensed. But then once I got licensed, the guy who recruited me, he quit. So I was kind of like an orphan, and I didn't know where to go from there. And then, I found the right people like 2 years later of doing nothing. And then I started training for final expense. And originally me and Chris, the heads of this company, we were in the same office, and that's how I met Chris. And since then I've been doing final expense. So you would say maybe almost 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years. So that's a lot of experience I have with final expense, or in the industry. And so you run the training with final expense. What have you noticed is the biggest concern or questions that most relevant questions that agents have starting in the final expense?
So the biggest questions that they have, let me just plug my computer in, it's about to run out of juice. Generally, the biggest questions that they have is, it seems like the phone is the hardest part for them, and they want to know how to set appointments. And from what I found, a lot of agents don't like to get on the phone, and they tend to door knock. But I feel that once you put in your time, you do enough phone calls, you're gonna automatically get better on the phone. So that's generally the biggest issue that they have. Biggest questions are, how do I set up better appointments? How do I set more quality appointments and not get as many no-shows?
And so do you run complete? I know you're still in the field now, and do you run all final expense?
Yeah, I actually tried mortgage protection, but for some reason, I guess I was so comfortable with final expense that I always revert back to final expense. I could do mortgage protection, I guess, if I wanted to, but now at this point, since I've been doing this so long, I'm not even comfortable with like any other type of market. It's just, it comes so easy and naturally for me because I've been doing this for so many years
Yeah.
that I just stick to final expense. And, I know that there's a lot of different philosophies out there where, agents can do both. Some people feel like one is better than the other, but I personally think, with my experience, that I think agents would probably be better, at least starting out with one type of niche as opposed to doing everything at once.
Oh, no, I agree with that. I agree with that. Well, you know what I like about final expense, because I started final expense too. What I really like about it is that it's a more emotional sale, and it's easier to get to the emotion. It's easier to ask the right questions to kind of hit on that emotional button. Where with mortgage protection, it's all about just protecting the mortgage. Now you can turn it into an emotional sale, but sometimes depending upon the person, depending on the situation, it's really hard to kind of pull that emotion out. It can be, whereas it's super easy to talk about final expenses. It's just,
Yeah,
it's very easy
definitely,
to talk
because
about that.
it seems like once you get into a certain age group, I've like I've been like I've been I guess I've been lucky to find out that the majority of these people, even whether they received a mail card or they filled out a mail card or not, like they're already thinking about it.
Mhm.
Which for me, it's almost like winning like the majority of the battle because it's already in their mind because they have friends like once they're over 50, they have friends, relatives that are starting to like pass away, and it's like really at the forefront of their mind. They're thinking like, hey, this could happen to me.
Mhm.
So just that alone, I think it makes it easier for you to bring that emotion out because it's kind of already there.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. And so the first thing that agents are going to probably ask when it comes to final expense is what is your lead flow look like, and what is a brand new agent coming on board looking to get started in final expense? What should their lead flow look like?
So my lead flow is between 20 to 25 leads a week. And I'm not really in the field like full time.
Mm-hmm.
I may be in the field maybe like 2 or 3 days. And a brand new agent, I mean, it really depends on what their goals are, but I would start them off at a minimum of 20 leads a week. And some agents have some pretty lofty goals, like they want to make 6 figures. But I found that the majority of people that I talk to, they don't even want to make, like, when I always ask them, like, well, what do you hope to make annually? And some of them will say, oh, I just want to make $50,000 a year. And for somebody like that, 20 leads a week can easily get them to that goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they want to go above and beyond that, then they can always scale up.
Okay. And when you say 20 to 25 leads, you're talking about final expense mailers?
Yes. That's all I do.
If for a new agent come on board that has to wait for those mailers to come in, what should they supplement on top of that in order to, and how much?
That's a great question. So there's one type of lead that I love, but you just can't get enough of them. And those are telemarketing leads.
Mm-hmm.
So telemarketing leads for me, I think they're gold because they're people that, first of all, you can generate them really fast within a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're cheap. You can get them for like $15 or even less sometimes. And the people have, expressed interest. When I work telemarketing leads, we get the recording, we get the amount of benefit, like face amount that they're looking for, the beneficiary. Mm-hmm. We get all this information, and
when they're going to be available at home.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you have their address. I mean, and the other thing to note is these people are phone people, right? One of the biggest problems when you're working leads is a lot of times these people, they fill out mailers, but they're filling out other stuff as well. And then they're getting bombarded with calls and they don't tend to answer the phone. But the telemarketing people, they answered the phone. So these are already phone people. So you can get them on the phone much easier. And, when you get in front of them, sometimes it'll be maybe within like 24 hours that somebody talked to them. Mm-hmm. So it's fresh in their mind. And when you talk to them and we also have another parameter that the actual telemarketer tells the actual prospect the name of the agent that's going to call them.
Yeah.
So they're already almost like waiting for somebody to call. And when they call, hey, my name is Sam. They remember your name. And it says here that, your favorite hobby is X or your favorite color is this. So it makes it very easy to jog their memory. I'm just going to be in your area tomorrow and Wednesday. Just let me know what works better. I'll drop this information off. So it's usually pretty easy to set those appointments.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's what we've been telling a lot of the agents coming on board is, start with telemarketing. And while you're waiting for, if you're doing even more texting, start with telemarketing and hopefully you can get those in, run some good appointments, which we already having appointments, agents that are getting those leads, making sales. I know I saw in our Slack channel the other day, someone was like, hey, I had four of my lead order come in. I called all four answered, all four set an appointment. Like they're like,
nice.
these leads are awesome. And it's just like, well, yeah, because
was that the direct mail?
No, that was all telemarketing leads.
There you go. I love those leads.
Because they answer the phone. They've already done it. They were
exactly. That's my point.
And they're ready. They're ready to take another call. So they're expecting it. So when it comes to your phone script, how is your phone script when it comes to doing mail pieces? Final expense mail pieces, do you have anything that you specifically say? Is it pretty generic, just like, hey, on and off, set an appointment? How do you run your phone script?
Yeah, so my goal is like really to get on the phone with them and off the phone with them as fast as possible. Mm-hmm. But in the back of my mind, my goal is to basically just sell the appointment. I'm not talking about insurance. Mm-hmm. I may mention that you requested some information, but I'm not going to go into detail. And I want to basically just verify that I'm talking to the right person. I want to verify that they do acknowledge that, we did get some information to call you, and then just verify their address and let them know we're going to drop it off tomorrow or the following day. Most of the time, what I used to do is I was trained to book appointments for the next 2 days. Mm-hmm. But as I started getting better, I noticed that I could literally book all my appointments for the next day. And so I try to have all my appointments booked for the next day, as many as possible. Mm-hmm. And then if it's, worst comes to worst, I'll book it for the next day. But once I do that, it's easier for me to the more people I see, the more opportunities I'm going to get. So that's my goal. So we just get on the phone, get off the phone, and just let them know what time we're going to be there. And I also one thing that I do, I'm not sure if a lot of agents, they know to do this or not, but I make sure that I tie down the appointment at the end. And basically I have them grab a pen and paper, write down my name, write down the time I'm going to come, make sure that I tell them that they have their have their medications out and have their photo ID out. So when you say that, it's really hard for them to no-show you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I assume that helps the show ratio when it comes to absolutely. If you're only setting 24 hours out, that's it. And then B, you're locking it down the way that you just said. So does this for your schedule, is it like, hey, I'll dial a day and I'm going to set my appointments 24 hours out, do appointments, dial another day, set appointments 24 hours out? Is that kind of how you do it?
Yeah. So basically, to be honest with you, now me and my wife do this together. So I trained her to set appointments. But before I trained her, I would book out appointments for the next 2 days.
Yeah.
But, I would try to get them all, as many as I can, in the first day. And then very rarely would somebody actually say no to me, because if they would give me an objection, I would just literally not necessarily answer their objection, but kind of just acknowledge it. But then I'm still going to see you tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So very rarely, if somebody's just look, I work 12 hours a day or something, and I'm only going to be home. Sometimes you can tell when somebody's being sincere and somebody's, it's something that you develop over time. When you've talked to enough people, you can kind of get a sense of somebody who's being sincere and somebody who's trying to blow you off. Yeah. So if I feel as if they're being sincere, then I'll book for the next day, the following day. But most of the time it's the next day. And then but to answer your question, when I did make the dials, I would call on Monday for 2 days, and I would have as many appointments booked as I could for the following day. And if I couldn't do that, then it would be the next day.
Awesome. Fantastic. And when it comes to, I wanted to talk about your in-home.
Sure.
I assume that like once you get so good at any either mortgage protection or final expense, you probably have specific things that you say or questions you ask in order to just guide the appointment through. How do you structure your appointment? What specific questions are you like always asking in every home in order to kind of guide that client to get to the end result of let's do an application?
Yeah, you know what? That's interesting because when I first started, and the interesting thing is that the person that I was actually being trained by was not even licensed. He was just like a marketer, and I didn't even know that. So he was telling me what to say, and I would do exactly what the script said, but it wasn't working for me. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong, but I would hear about all these other people in the company that were doing so well. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like I never, one thing about me is that I never thought it was the leads, because I know that the other guys were using the same exact leads and they were having success. But with that company, you know, they actually never had anybody that was out in the field talk on a webinar or a conference or anything. But anyway, so yeah, so I had to develop my own script, and that took me it took me time because I couldn't afford as many leads in the beginning. So once I started developing, I noticed that the first objection that I would get always is this about insurance? And I would just say, yeah, it's about insurance, which is kind of a mistake that after I figured out. As soon as I would say, yes, I already got insurance, I don't need this. And they would just like not even let me in the door. So I basically came up with like a way to kind of circumvent that objection, because I was getting that objection more than anything else, like literally like when I got into the house. So my presentation is really designed to, because a lot of final expense people, they already have insurance. And that's the first thing that they're going to say. Hey, well, I already have insurance. So basically what I say is I go in and I have my binder with me, and I have the sheet where it has all the carriers that we work with. I show them my license, and then I turn to that sheet and I just say to them, you know, do you know why I'm here? And regardless of what they say, it's irrelevant. I'll just tell them, okay, so my job is pretty simple. I'm actually part of an organization that has literally thousands of seniors all across the country. And because of that large senior network, we attract a lot of insurance companies. I work with 20 of the top insurance companies in the state of Florida and the United States. And what they want from us is they want access to our senior network. So what we did is we got together with them, we created a state regulated program and forced all of them to reduce their prices for our seniors. So most people that I talk to, a lot of times, you know, they already have some sort of traditional life insurance plan in place. I'm sure you have something. And right then and there, like, they're like, yeah. And that just eliminates that objection. So you probably have something. More than likely, the company that you have is already part of our network. If it is part of our network, that means you already maybe covered by us. If you are, that means I could do one of three things for you. A, reduce the cost of what you're spending. B, give you more benefits without spending more money. Or C, put some cash in your pocket. So if you have something and you can think of the name of it, I can look it up. And now they're very motivated to show me their policy because they want to know if I can do one of those three things for them. And from that point on, like, it's pretty simple. Then I just review their policy, and then I can know which way to sell them. They don't have enough insurance.
Makes it a lot easier when they pull out the policy.
They literally run to go get their policy. I don't have to pull their teeth. They're like, oh, really? Because they want to either save money. They think that, you know, I mean, it's kind of true because they may be with some of the same companies. Once I look at their policy, I can just say, look, you're on the wrong plan. We can do this or we can do that for you.
Yeah.
Or that's pretty much it. Another thing that I noticed is that sometimes people that when they pull out their policy, on the surface, it looks like there's nothing that you can do for them. But if you dig a little deeper and ask some more questions, and a new agent would not even know to ask these questions, but you know, I'm on this podcast and hopefully this helps some agents. I always ask them, like, this policy that you have, you know, you've had it for a number of years, you're getting a really good rate. Did you ever take out a loan against this? and you'd be surprised, like I would say like 40 to 50% of them borrowed. So when you look at the premium, that's not the full story. They might be paying like another $20 or $30 on top of that. And you can possibly, and here's the thing, the majority of them, they don't even, when they borrow the money, they don't even pay it back. So as far as their understanding is, over time, they don't know what's going to happen, but they think that, well, the rep told me that I borrowed $1,000, I have $10,000, and if I don't pay it back, I'll just end up with, my family will end up with $9,000. And when I say to them that that's not entirely true, they're like, what do you mean? And then I explain to them, well, you have a loan and the rate is probably about 8%. So the loan is going up. So the bigger the loan gets, the more they're going to take away from your benefit. So your benefit might significantly go down, or if you don't pay this off. And now, you haven't paid this in like 3 years. So I can only imagine what the interest rate is. So that creates like a lot of like emotion right there. And they're like, what do you mean? And, if I didn't point that out to them, they could have potentially lost their policy. So those are like things that I can do. And it's all centered around the policy. And a lot of times, like I would say like half the people don't have policies, but the other half do. And when you do have policies, I was talking to an agent yesterday, and he was coming across people that did have policies, but he didn't know how to handle that. And we talked about it, but he may have forgot because he's a brand new agent. But yeah, that's pretty much specifically what I say in the beginning. And then after that, it's really just a conversation.
I like that. I like how you can almost like Jedi mind trick them into like being like, oh, let me go get my policy. Like, you don't even have to ask for it. Like they're just running to the other room and going to grab the policy. Because that's a lot of times that's the hardest thing, especially for seniors, that almost all of them have some kind of policy in place. Yeah. But then you can't make a professional opinion or decision to help them without seeing their policy. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to agents. They're like, oh, they already had policy. Did you see it? And they're like, no, they wouldn't get it. Well, how do you know what they had?
That'll come and bite you.
Yeah,
like, what if you don't get that policy? That's going to come up later on at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I already got a policy.
Exactly. You got to get that on the front end. You got to find out what they have on the front end. You got to be able to get it. And that's a really great way in order to motivate them to get it. Like it's their idea. Like, oh man, I'm gonna go get this thing out, dust it off. And
it took me a lot of fails to like really come up with that, because that's what they kept saying. I already got insurance. Why do I need this? Like that was like the main objection that I'd be getting. I would never even get to the point where they would say, I need to think about it.
Yeah.
That would just stop me right then and there, and I'd be done. And it was just like very disheartening, because especially when, when I was getting trained, like they didn't know what to tell me. They would just say, oh, well, just tell them to go get the policy. They don't want to get the policy. They don't even know me and they don't trust me.
So what other objections? What's the second most objection that most used objection that you get?
I mean, the second one is, I guess I want to think about it, because all the others, they're not like real objections, but I think the I want to think about it objection, its root cause is that you didn't go through really, I guess, the process, you didn't take them through the process correctly. If you don't take them through the process correctly, and one of the main things is if they have a policy and you kind of just like went over it without like really diving deep into it, that's what they're thinking about. Well, why do I need this? I already got, $10,000, $12,000. I'm going to add another bill to this. Like, what do I need this for? Like, now that I think about it, maybe I don't need this. Let me think about it. That makes perfect sense. So if you don't really take them through that process correctly, that's mainly why you're getting that objection. But the other reason that I think, the other major reason why you're getting that objection is because when you when you finish your presentation, I think a lot of these prospects, what they think is, because remember, we're dealing with people that are on a fixed income and they only get paid once a month, right? So you have to understand your client. So they only get paid once a month, and it might be the middle of the month and you're telling them to like take on this bill. And in their mind, they're thinking like, I got to pay this like right now. I don't have the money. So I'm just going to say, I think about it, because here's why I think that. Because when they give me that objection, as far as like with my presentation, majority of the time, it's so easy to handle, because when I tell them, well, why don't you do this? Let's submit the application. You don't have to make a payment today. You can just, push that off into the future, and let's see if you get approved first. Actually, I don't really say it that way. I say it a different way, but that's the gist of what I say, just to kind of let them know that you don't have to make any payments today. Let's just submit an application. And many times, I would say like 70% of the time, when I say it that way, they're like, oh yeah, we could do that. So they've kind of been relieved that I don't have to make a payment today because I don't have any money.
Exactly.
So I think that's like the majority of reasons that you get that objection. And then I think maybe like 10-15% of the time, it could be for other reasons. But even then, like I had a lady the other day, I was sitting down with a couple, and the husband was just kind of quiet, and the wife was the one who was very vocal. And he was like kind of like he was about to do something, right? But the wife kept saying, yeah, well, do you need to, like, she wasn't telling me we need to think about it. She was telling the husband basically what to do. She kept saying to him, do you need to think about it? Every time I would like kind of like talk to him, she would say, well, don't you need to think about it? She would keep saying that. So I just kind of turned my attention to her, and I asked her that, hey, her name, forgot her name, but Miss Johnson, let me ask you a question. First of all, and these are 3 questions, like if all the others have failed, this is my last resort. I ask them, do you trust me? And they're always going to say yes. Do you feel like this payment is affordable? You're going to say yes to that. I mean, if they don't, then you got to handle it, go back. But she said yes. And then my last question is, do you understand the product? And she said yes. And as soon as she said yes 3 times, I mean, I did it a lot faster than that. She gave me 3 yeses. Then I just said, okay, I just need to see your driver's license. We're going to submit an app. She just went and got it. So that was like,
because there's nothing to think about. That's the only things to think about. That's when you're like, okay, so looks like we don't have that much to think about. Go get your driver's license. Let's do this.
And she went and got her license, and then we finished the app. Yeah. So sometimes, being assumptive is huge in the home, and people don't really want to, from my experience, people don't really want to kind of like, they want to go along to get along, right? They don't want to be like confrontational, and they kind of want somebody to lead them. And when you do it that way, you're kind of like, removing all the resistance, because you're making it really easy for them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, if you had a brand new agent that you're bringing on, what are some pitfalls or just advice that you would give them to help them get rolling really quickly in the field?
I would tell them that the biggest part of doing not just final expense, but any kind of niche is, your work ethic. Like, just show up. Regardless of what happens, just show up, just put in the work, because at the end of the day, the presentations are great and the objections are good to know, but showing up will get you much further than just knowing like the perfect thing to say at the perfect moment. Just the fact that you showed up, because that alone has gotten me more results just by showing up than really anything else. Like when you're in the home, I think that the hardest part is to get in the home. And once you're already in the home, you pretty much like did all the hard work, so they let you in. So just show up, get your leads. If you're not good on the phone, go door knock them. Just do whatever you can to get in front of them, and just kind of like, smile and let them see that your personality and you're somebody that's trying to help them. That's Absolutely. Really what they care about. Absolutely. So that's what I would say.
And if anybody in the company needed to get some assistance or help with final expense, you could help them, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Perfect. And if anybody was watching this and they said, man, I want to get into final expense, I like Sam, I like the way he talks about his appointments and how he runs his business, I'd like to work alongside him, how could they get in touch with you?
So I can give out my phone number as well as my email.
Yeah.
Phone number is 727-458-1119. And my email is S and then my last name, CHAND, at adv1brokers.com.
Perfect. So, Sam, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and sharing your expertise in final expense. I'm sure you're going to probably be getting hit up by some people that are interested in doing some final expense with you. And for all the listeners out there, thank you so much for watching. If you're on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, you like the video, you share it. That's the fee. Okay. We do this for free. Huh?
I've been sharing your videos a lot too.
Fantastic, man. That's what I'm talking about. So if you got something out of this, if you listen to Sam, you got something out of this, the way that he does his final expense, share it with other people and let them get that knowledge and that information. And we really appreciate that. That's how we basically keep the light.